Like there was an instance, I studied the whole day. Right. The next day, I went in the paper, the depression papers, the question that were actually put for me, I was disappointed.
Of course. Wow. All right. So in this video, I interview university students regarding their experiences with test anxiety in their university life. So what's your name?
It's a Mabel.
Mabel. Okay, Mabel. Mabel, so how long have you been in the university? 2 years, Mabel. So Mabel, have you ever had any experiences or encounter with something or test anxiety?
Yes, it is. Can you brief me about what's this?
So maybe test anxiety, we are talking about the kind of anxiety or fear that comes with testing situations. So quite often when people want to read a test, whether a quiz, whether an examination, especially when you are not that prepared, we start feeling a bit scared. The very thing that's taking a test or writing a test or a quiz, that fear that comes, that feeling that they are scared. Sometimes I don't do well, that kind of stuff. That is what I'd be referred to as test underneath. So my question for you was, have you ever had such an experience in your testing life so far that on numerous occasions that there's time for a quiz or there's a time for an exam and you're like, I'm feeling scared? And what goes on in your mind when you have that experience of test anxiety, you're feeling scared? What goes on in your mind? What are some of the comments?
Sometimes it feels like you wouldn't be able to write the exam. It's sometimes forget what you learn.
Right. Both like, or do you ever hear in comment like, I might feel this quiz or it come out not too well?
Do I pretend or right, but that's
Right.
the
But quite often for me in my student days, when I prepared for a test or a quiz, that I don't have any room for a fear that I will not do well. In my mind, like I bust it out in my mind, like for me, I think that when I prepared, I have the appetite to read. I don't think that I shouldn't do well. That is my mindset. So I think it's a question of a student, when you are prepared, when you had ample time, I don't think you should go into test anxiety.
I think I know.
Right. That even when you are prepared, it's possible. Right. And what you think will make someone who is prepared for an exam or a quiz be anxious?
You know that UCC is a competitive university. So the moment she hear examination, I begin to panic. Yeah. So even with that, when you hear that UCC are coming to write exam, yeah, that's text anxiety.
Right. I think it's also a question of mindset, And like I said, me, when I prepare for a test, I come in with so confident that in normal life, I don't have bad confidence. But I think I should be the best. I should be the one to do well. That if someone will not do well in that test, it shouldn't be me. Because I've given so much time and attention to the material that I study that I'm confident that if it will be a disaster, no. If I fail, then it means that the whole class is like,
Maybe it's because we are students, that's what we feel.
right. So if the mindset is changed, about when you study, that confidence comes now, that you're going to make it over the course you have to pay. Quite of a test anxiety, it comes for students who don't like study. Students who would want to study at the last minute. They are the people that test anxiety actually, they experience it the most. Because when you've not studied, what goes on in your head is like, hey, what is this chapter that I need to recaps? And that is how anxiety works. It starts questioning you in your head. And then out of that question, hey, you at least studied this unit. Maybe it will come. And that is it you fall into. Test anxiety. So do you have anything you do whenever you feel that anxious or you don't know what to be more, you feel anxious about test anxiety?
Sometimes you feel like, okay, I'll see that I see then I'm aroused or when I'm different. Because sleeping will help you to gain burst energy. Yeah, that's my one. And I think that though you stated all right, why some people free do it, but I think that even if you pray and you haven't studied anything, that isn't the last because I think when it be sport will help you when you stay or they help you need to regain what you do.
Right. So it means that you, part of your coping, aside the sleep, which is very good form, anxiety. Quite often when you go through any form of anxiety, sleeping is one of the remedies for sure. But also your idea about prayer, of course, Now, religious coping or religious treatment or therapy has been seen to be very beneficial. And that when people have interest in their religion, they have a religious practice like the prayer you are talking about. You pray and it gives some sort of belief. And your fear start wearing out, that I've prayed, I know that God will help me. First, and self-talk, then I carry it yourself. What's your name?
My name is Christabel.
Christabel. Christabel, first name of what?
Christabel Such.
Soji, okay, good. Have you heard about testability?
Yes.
Very well. And how long have you been in the university?
Oh, 10 till this.
2 years, almost 2 years. Okay, that's nice. So you've written some quizzes, you've done some exams, and you have an idea of what test. And so what do you think test anxiety is?
Okay, so I think test anxiety is basically talking about probably when you're having a test, how you feel in the state, whether you become happy or become sad, pertaining the particular test you have got. Right.
So it's about your feeling, by a feeling of fear, but it's persistent. All right, exactly. That is what test anxiety is. If you have this feeling of fear of the test, the pending test, or the pending quiz or exam that is coming up, that consistent, you feel like, I'm afraid I won't do it. But you, when you express in test like that, one goes on in your mind, like when I saw the comment about your head, when you express it.
Okay, so with me, I basically think, so is this exam going to go well? Or am I going to get the results that I set for myself before the semester? Or am I going to do best amongst my friends? Like, and I think because the best results to what parents, and if all the answers are no, that's what actually gets me really anxious.
Right. So it's about thinking about back home before you came, the expectations they have for you. Do you know that sometimes the expectations family, parents also have for us when we come to university to study? The high standards they have, you have to do what you have to be the best. You have to, that can also lead to test and
Exact. It's really plays a vital role in now.
Right. So with that one, quite often for me, I don't really go by someone's expectation. Right. It's about your expectation of yourself. And when you are setting expectations for you, you know what you can handle. Right. But when someone sets expectations for you, they give you something that they don't know whether you have the tools to be able to handle it or not. And that is when test anxiety comes. Or say, my mom said I have to get everything A. But maybe you look at your stage, you know that you cannot get everything A. And that dichotomy, right, can bring that kind of confusion leading you to test anxiety. But my mom said I should get it, but I know I can't. So you get up and pick it. So that mismatch can also lead us into test anxiety. But you, when you are test anxious, what are small things that you do?
Okay, so I mainly speak positive words to myself. So I keep telling myself I can do it, and I will not fail this paper. So I make sure that I prepare very well. Even if I don't do it as well, when I get there, I still make sure that I encourage myself. Even in the examination, while looking at people around, some of them, even though they don't know what's going on with their heads, but they look very chill. But honest who are so down, I don't look at those people at all. They bring down my story. So it's scary. They really, really discourage me. So I just look at those who I get happy. And most of the time, it's my friends that I know work in flats. So I make sure that maybe if they are not even that close to me, I can actually see them from afar. Then I just
They give you some sort of
motivation.
So that's talking about looking at friends and trying to get out of test anxiety. Because test anxiety, when you are unable to deal with it before you go and sit down for the quiz or the exam, it's going to affect your performance. Alright? It will affect your performance. There are things that without test anxiety you can do. But with test anxiety, it will stress you to the point that you cannot. After, when you pick the exam sheet, and this one, I should have been able to do it. And test anxiety is a very big able for many students. Many students have a huge potential, but because of fear, meanwhile, it's something that they can actually do. Talking about your experience about students and the exam situation, whether someone's behavior can make you be more test anxious. I mean, when I was in the university here, like you, Conskills, right? In our time, Conskills was really a fierce course that we were writing it. One tutor boy in our class, I was behind him, we were writing Conskills, and then the teacher or whoever came, and it's like, how's it going? Said, oh, very cheap. Meanwhile, that time I'm sitting by the paper. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to say. So when he said very cheap, I said, it's very cheap. That was right. Unfortunately, it came out. Only two Bob had A. I was part of it. The guy who said very cheap had a D. So sometimes, in the exam situation, some people will just frighten you. And if you pick their message into your head, right, and believe that they are better, that guy just had a feeling that it's better, but even how the course progress was nowhere to be found as far as performances were says. And this guy can be the reason why some people didn't perform. Because he can make claims in class and all of that. Exam situation make it always cheap, but it'll come. So it's really good to look at the test situation if you want to do, and look at the people who give you motivation. There are some friends, when you look at them in their room, it's like, no, I can't do it. Look at him, you're doing it, I can also do it. You get it? And that'll be a very short case, nobody test that, right? So how long have we been in this university? MTA 3 years. So 2 years of being in the university, have you admired about test anxiety?
Yes, sir.
You know what it is, what it test our life.
And what I know about text anxiety is when an individual feels stressed or apprehensive about writing text.
All right. So apprehension or fear about impending danger. And if you look at this explanation of what text anxiety is, your fear about the pending danger. So at the pending danger, why would some student integrate the testing situation as the pending danger?
Okay, so in my opinion, through schooling, I see that most students do not really prepare well for exams. They see that when due to not preparing well for the exam,
Right.
it sometimes them tremble and then shake, and then sometimes their heart even begins to beat faster. And I'm hearing that there's an exam approaching. So I feel like students should always get prepared, but not to wait till the day to write an exam before they start to learn and then grasp
Right.
everything.
So you're saying that they see it as an impending danger because they don't prepare,
Yes,
or there's small preparation.
yes, the preparation is not adequate.
It's not adequate, it's not enough. So because of that, they start being afraid.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So during that they start being afraid, you know that the perception of students who really are in the top 1% performance in the university, their perception about a test or an exam is quite different from students who they prepare or learn for their tests. And the difference is this: for the student who learns and prepares for, they are even waiting for the testing situation to come so that they can really put up the performance for everybody to see how smart they are. For the student who doesn't like learning or who doesn't learn or prepare, they are always dreading the moment. They always think about it. This when you at the exam that is coming is going to be difficult. But for the people who are doing well, it's like one wouldn't bring the points or the exam so that all the things are late, so that I can write it, for them to see that I'm the best. To get it. So the view is different. And that is what explains why those who don't like learning or who don't prepare will be more test anxious than look super very also.
So, what if, to me like this,
Right.
I know not to brag, but I'm a B student. So to wait for an exam to come, sometimes I do really prepare at the pay. But on hearing what others say, those who have been in the university for me, like, and you'll be writing, we'll be letting them ask questions, and then you go to see future question right in the examination. Yes. So that kind of staying also tries to put a little play in me.
When you encounter test anxiety situations in your university life, what do you do?
I also most of the times I seek advices from my fellow students who are above me. So I mostly ask my mates if they take advices and how to overcome it. And sometimes so I try to play video games to cool it down or hide anxiety.
Right. Video game is playing is an escape. Of course, when it helps you take your mind off that which is threatening you and making you feel anxious. So it's a nice way of, dealing with test anxiety. But what I'm trying to get you to see is that you are just running away from the situation. And would you also agree with me that maybe, depending on whoever is teaching you, if students have a lot of information about lectures, and some students will go that, this lecture is hard person, the questions are hard. When you hear those messages, and you put it into your head, would you agree that cannot speak a person test anxious sometimes?
Yes, we can really need some self-anxious because most of the times the way they put the thing and how they see it,
Right.
and then in your past life, in your past education, see, you've also experienced such things for Ghana study. So if I go to this teacher's class, she's very straight in, staff's less. It also puts you to fear. But when you go there, that's how you get to learn at, oh, how do I see it? Wasn't like how.
Well, like that. And for me, in my student days, this messages from other students about lecture. This lecture is not the quiz. No matter what you do, you cannot get A. I threw all of that away. I have my own mindset. When I hear those messages about lecture, they say this lecture is hard. Or it is hard. I'll be like, it is I'm also hard. And when I hear that, I even get idea about that lectures, I've come to destroy his paper in errors. So most of my scores here were hardness and so on and so forth. That's why I'm telling your other friends that it's a question of your mindset. And if you allow negative information like this, lecture is hard, no matter what you do, you don't get it, you don't like giving A, all this kind of stuff. It will make you anxious, the persona of that lecture. You get scared, you've been seeing that person come for lectures, not to talk about that person is holding it and quiz people and exam paper breaking into you get to be much more anxious. So then it's important for students when it comes to the test anxiety, not to pick any information on the campus that they hear into their minds. Because test anxiety, it actually starts from your mind. The communication in your mind, what goes on the idea that drop your head. Whenever you hear from this environment, you put it in. It influences you either positively or negatively. Some students are told that this is a giant who fail me. You go in with fear that when you make even one mistake, you'll fail this paper. I wrote my first paper, Comscript, the one I made. After writing it, I went to scared about the paper, but I'll fail. So back about this praying that, hey, I should just get a pass because failure is dangerous for my life. So I want a pass. So that was my prayer the whole end of semester when I went home. Right? I came and we had to go and check the results. That time they used to put our results on a notice board. So when the results are 8, you walk to wherever they've pasted it to go and watch your girlfriends. And I had one roommate, he said, oh, for him, he wrote the com scores, he will get everything correct and all of that. And I said, let's go. But I was just following it because I was scared I would already fail. We went in and that guy who said he has really written the com skills paper where check his results first. I stood behind. When he checked, what did you guys say? He had a C. I said, hey, let go, get out fail. Right, the Bella has had the D. Then I feel, let's go. Said, oh, you check. Actually, I were to be out of 2 I was there. And I'm like, no, this is not my grade. This is not me. Did they make a mistake? So my journey on the university campus, rising to become the best student in everything, that was the starting point. When that one couldn't fail me and I rather make A, I had some confidence. You get a point I made. And that is what makes people do it. The idea here, you get a point, they believe in yourself. And they believe that you can conquer every lecture. That would definitely play a huge role in terms of get spotters and light. What's in it? I'm John Albe. John. Okay, John. John, how long have you been in this university? This is my second year. This is your second year. So let's say almost 2 years in university campus. So you've taken some quizzes, you've taken some exam, and you know how it feels like writing an exam in a university situation, right? So I'm sure being on the university campus, if possible, you've heard something they call test and light. You've heard something like that before. And what is your idea? What do you take of this?
If you ask me, like, I take anxiety, right? It's some kind of psychological, experience, right? That students, psychological experience or situation that students go through, right? During and before exams.
During and before. But quite often, it's a case of about to write a quiz, about to write an exam. That is when you start getting that feeling. The feeling that you might not do, or the feeling that there will be a disaster in this space or exam that you are going to write. So it's a pretty much one word for it is feel it. You feel that you are afraid that you will not do well, that is going to be a disaster, right? And once upon a time, being a student, you would encounter it, test anxiety. You test just one time. Even for the very best student, they do encounter, have that feeling, which is a test anxiety. That fear before the test, that fear they might not do it. That fear that the test that they are going to write is going to be a disaster. But what will be the difference between the student who still go on to do well in the test or the quiz and those who make the test and like to conquer them and therefore they be hungry potential to do better but will not perform? Do you get what I'm making? So for one group of people, they will get the feeling that fear is there, but they will still go on to perform. For another group of students or any student, they will go in, the test anxiety will destabilize them and they cannot really perform. What do you think?
If you ask me like what I know about her, what I can say about that is really that some students, like students in general, every student is just there's anxiety, right? Every student will. The difference is that some people allow it to unconscious, whilst others should overcome it through their way.
So it's a question of the individual.
Yeah, it's a question of individual difference. Like those who never have the anxiety, but still at the end of the day, I would say they are overconfident. Of course, sometimes when you are overconfident about the exams, whatever you write, you come out and you are still positive, right? The result will come out right, positive, right? Only for you to be disappointed at the end of course. But there are some people who study very well, right? Yeah, they will stay very well, even though they fear, but they still have some kind of belief in the exam that, of course, at the end of the day, they still do well, and they come out positive. So, most of the times too, I would also say it depends on subject matter. Of course, the kind of subject we are writing. Some people, we have phobia for some subjects, of course. Listen, let me use myself as an example, right? I have phobia for maths. And having pass negative mathematical evaluations because if you didn't do it, how is the one that pass higher? Like judging from that, in the kind, there is an exam, so here and it is mathematics. By all means, at least I will have some kind of fear if it's all happens and
there'll be more of the past experience. Of course, many students go through this a lot because of past experiences. Maybe even if you take a course by a lecturer, you don't do well, you can take that past experience with that lecture. Anytime you read them, you're already anxious, you're already afraid. Whereas that can also affect your performance as a student. So then, with that one, what I think students have to do is that, when you have a bad history or experience in terms of the test that you two more particular lecture, plus, you have to delete that history from your memory. That would be the way out to overcoming that kind of test anxiety, which is based on the past experience that you have. Maybe you didn't do well in maths. Sometimes it means that today when you meet maths again, you will not do well. You get it?
the hair. And what I can add more is, so I know test anxiety. Like I believe that test anxiety is common in every student. Of course, yeah, test anxiety is common in every student. I don't think like a test anxiety can be done away with easily. Of course, you can only with it. Call boys reduce or put with it special. You think that do away with it completely,
right? Babe, you know what resilience is? Having that strong will, not keeping out, keep on moving on. Do you think that if students are more resilient, right, they can still be able to conquer test anxiety? Because when you are test anxious, you still have this fear of not doing well and all of that. But for the student who is very resilient, right, chances are that they will still be able to deal with their anxiety and go on to conquer. The fear of the unknown, the fact that we are going to write a test, we don't know which questions will come. I can't know what that be. You don't know. That's what actually leads many people to test analyze.
And that even though you might have studied the whole day, of course, and claim to be a sharp or whatever, right?
That's it. But what do you do on your test anxiety? Is there anything you do to overcome it and get to this level of your academic career? Because you're able to come to a university, it means that the experiences that you had with test anxiety, you're able to conquer them, do well, so and get to this level. So what do you do? Do you have anything that you
overcoming test anxiety is not the easy to do it, but as the students or as a man going to war, you're right. There are certain things you need to put into place, so for at least you not just come out being totally defeated. Of course, yeah. So in my own case, right, like, I make sure that any time I'm to enter into exams for right, at least right a week to the exams, I'll make sure I have the good rest. Or is I have ample rest. I make sure that even there's something will be disturbed, it shouldn't be sleep. That will prevent me from learning. Yeah. And also make sure that I prioritize my time in a way that I will have, sample time or ample time for my books, ignoring any other activities, of course, so that my mind will
more time to study before the test or for the exam. You also know that students who study let's say tomorrow is the study day or the examination day. Student who will decide to study the whole night and not sleep, your chance of experiencing test anxiety will be more. Just because sleep is connected to our feeling. So if you deprive yourself of sleep, you are more likely to experience test anxiety.
Yeah, it's true. It was I relate him because most at times, even that's with the last editors us at the preparation that we wrote, I experienced several things like that. Like there was an instance I studied the whole day.
Right.
The next day I went in the paper, the depression papers, the question that we actually put it for me. I was disappointed.
Of course. Wow. It happened to me in SHS. See, I was disappointed. It happened to me in SHS. Letting mathematics. I was there the whole night solving questions. When I went to the exam, you know what happened to me? I'm there and then trying to check the parts of the questions. I will look on the paper. Everything is Spanish. You get what I'm saying? So sleep is really important if you want to deal with test anxiety, because when you sleep, you wake up, the body is more refreshed, more balanced, in equilibrium, and we are able to handle our emotions better in that way and therefore conquer test anxiety.